Hello, thank you to the panel. Tough job. Everyone's eating lunch. So yes, please do enjoy your lunch. And we will do our panel. We'll run for about 20 or so minutes before returning to the awards, the final awards for the afternoon. So Marina, Yvonne, Aminata, we are all here to celebrate leadership success and achievement. I'm wondering if just to kick us off in terms of what we just heard from your bios from Kirsty, if I can ask each of you, and Marina, I will go to you first because we know each other well. So can I ask you each to share one key thing that you're most proud of when it comes to success and leadership?
Oh gosh, Angela, didn't prepare for that, but I think the most important thing that I'm proud of with regards to leadership is that what I advocate for, I do. So I do in my job, I do in my daily job. I've been a huge advocate for equality and diversity and inclusion. And so as a company director, I make sure that I make my voice heard and my board seat count with regards to those very important issues.
Yvonne.
For me, I'm so proud. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on Gadigal land and pay my respects to all elders past and present and all First Nations that are here today. As a Wiradjuri woman, I've grown up with very staunch and strong Wiradjuri women that have shown leadership my entire life. One of the greatest strengths that I feel that leadership has is actually making a difference. For me, when I think about leadership, I think about making change where the difficulties lie. I know that when I've sat in roles as the chairperson of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, I know some of those behaviours wouldn't have taken place if I was a man. So being a woman in leadership in any of those roles is about making that difference.
Aminata.
I think for me, when I consider leadership, it's really around restoring dignity to humanity, making sure that everybody that I come across and that knows me or where I can show an impact to make them feel that their dignity is restored, because I think that's the one thing that holds every human being as one. So that's very important to me in leadership.
Thank you. Aminata, I'm going to just stick with you for a moment, but your story, it demonstrates the ultimate test of resilience, and I encourage everyone to go and read Aminata's beautiful book, which is how I think I first got to know you and got to interview you a couple of years back. From your experiences in the war in Sierra Leone to arriving in Australia to start up a new life and the work that you do with the foundation now. So you always share incredible warmth and positivity and optimism. So I just want to know, how do you maintain that type of energy day to day?
Oh my goodness. I think it's really about the having that recognition that I am alive. We don't get to think about it day to day because we all go through things and we go through challenges. But I think to know that I am alive, I am here, I am the most important human being. Even, hold on, because there are mothers here, even before my children, because I truly believe that you can only give what you have. You know what I mean? So for me, the idea of recognizing that I fought so hard to survive during the war when I was kidnapped, and to know that I have now this life of privilege. And I know it's very strange for a lot of people when a black woman said privilege, but I am, because I'm alive. And I was able to give birth in a country like Australia where my daughter could survive. And those are the things that I count on, because those are the things that I have. You know, I don't have tomorrow. So today is all I have, and I make sure today count. And that means is celebrating life, really. It's nothing, it's nothing that sort of special, because I know that I am special. So you can't treat somebody special when you don't know when you're special. So I think for me, that's the way I've lived life, and that's the way I choose to live life till I depart from this world, really valuing myself and know that I am like truly fully enough, and then giving that to others. Yeah.
Thank you. See, I was right with all that positive energy, so thank you. Yvonne, I know you've previously shared with Women's Agenda that you've long been surrounded by strong leaders and your community considered you to be one too. But you swore black and blue that you'd never do it, but that changed when you entered local politics and again when you took on the race for the Lord Mayor of Sydney. Can you explain the turning point that happened and a little bit how you overcame any sort of apprehension that you had about such a public leadership campaign?
Oh, look, I'm in denial that I've entered politics at all. I actually just want to make a difference, and I think that some of my lived experience shares so much about what we should be doing, not so much about politics or bureaucracy, but the difference we should make to each other. I did swear black and blue that I'd never get involved in black politics because it is not, it's not easy. It certainly has lots of challenges. We are very diverse people, and coming together often to work in an environment that is not inclusive is very disheartening. I saw that my entire life, where I've had my family members that have actually created organisations not just for their people and communities, but the whole of the country. The challenges that have come to them comes at the expense of them. I saw that growing up with my own parents and what they were able to contribute to community, people and society. And I thought, I can't do this, and yet I did. The challenge is actually often more about the pathway of who we be. And I truly feel that there are sometimes opportunities that come your way not because you intend it to be, but rather the way it's intended for you. When I think about my journey in running against, the Lord Mayor of Sydney, who still is there, and some people say she needs to move on. Other people say that she's done wonderful things, and she has. But all of us need to be inclusive in a real way. And I think, being the first Aboriginal councillor elected in the 180 years history of this council, it's a great honour, but it's also a great injustice to my people that it's taken so long. When you think about leadership, you often think about people out the front leading, but it's more about the people that are walking with you. I have been blessed to be guided by many incredible Wiradjuri people, particularly our matriarchs, because we are a matriarchal society. What I've done with that is that it's not just about us women, it's also about our men. And one of the greatest things that I think I'll take from the journey, the amount of people that came, I had no money and no idea, and I got elected. And I had many people tell me that are seasonal politicians or, been elected to council previously, just take it all in your stride because you're not going to be elected. And yet here I am. And so, but I'm a very proud grandmother of one, and my grandson, who's now 3, last year, he at his preschool in Paddington, it was next door to an actual polling place, and he could see my poster on the telegraph pole, my call flute. And he was 2 then, and he said to a couple of his little mates, both non-Aboriginal, and said, "Come here, come here." And he said, "That's my nin." And for me, if that's normal for my grandson at 2 years of age, what can be normal for him when he's 20 is the difference that we're all making today. So.
Marina, so much of your career has been in the public eye, so being in the media, working across boards and especially high-profile positions in sport especially, which are often some of the first roles that get the attention of certain shock jocks and broadcasters and various journalists and things like that. So not always kind, some of those people. How do you personally stay resilient in the face of that and tune out those who want to really lash out at every decision that you make, or who might have preconceived ideas about the roles women can have?
Yeah, well, I think the preconceived ideas are that women shouldn't have any of these roles. And so I guess what I've done many times in my career is I've taken what you would call a hospital pass, which I've been happy to take because it's very often the only way that women get opportunities, like some of the ones that I've had. So, you know, one of the ones that you referred to, I was the chair of the West Tigers NRL club, and the media went to town on me, as you know. I mean, I actually feel very proud that between Julia Gillard and Gillian Triggs, I was the person in between those two that Alan Jones called for the sacking. So I feel like I was in great company. But that doesn't happen unless you are worrying the guys, not all men, but certainly in the media. You know, one of the reasons, Angela, that we launched Women's Agenda 10 years ago was because we worked out that the only way that women were being written about is if they were victims or they were celebrities. And we knew that there was more to women than that, so much achievement, which you do really well. And I'm so proud of you and Tala for what you've done with Women's Agenda. So what I do, I'm a former journalist, so it probably helps that I know what these guys are thinking. And so I just think they don't have all the facts. They don't know what it takes to actually turn something around. I've been given a hospital pass more times than you can think, and certainly in that case, with the West Tigers, the club was virtually on its knees. And so were the things that we had to do. They made some of the people, you know, some of the old guard, I guess, of rugby league very uncomfortable. But I like making people feel uncomfortable, so actually I was fine with it. I think as long as you keep your eye on the prize, you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, you just can ignore all of that, ignore all of the hate. That's what I did. I stopped reading about myself. I certainly stopped reading the mass media, and that was, you know, that was helpful. Thankfully, I had Women's Agenda to read instead.
So Aminata, I know that you've spoken about positivity now, so I want to ask about purpose. And you run a not-for-profit supporting women and babies in Sierra Leone. So I think the purpose is pretty clear, as is your story behind that purpose. But every day you need to bring people along that journey of your purpose, right? Especially with the hustle that comes with running a not-for-profit like what you do. So what are your key tips for bringing people into your purpose and onto your journey?
Well, I believe it's setting a clear intention. I think I know intention and a lot of word of gratitude they use over a lot, and everybody uses it. But I think to have a clear intention, not just for the organization, but for yourself. Everything has to start from self. If you're a leader, I always think when I look at leaders who believe they can be a different person at work and then a different person at home, I don't think that works because you're only one human being. So I believe that you have to be able to bring that together and be the same because you spend more time at work than at home. So for me, it's really setting clear intention for the people that I surround myself around. I am very, very intentional about that, but also the way what I feed myself, the message that I feed myself, so that when I get out into the world, there is nothing really that can break me. Like you can say what you think of me or what you think that I should be doing, but I really know who I am. And I think knowing who you are, it's not just a word, oh, I know who I am. You really have to know that really have to know that you don't really compromise or betray yourself. And I think for me, it's how I have always worked, and how I have created my environment, that I know that I'm never going to do anything that I'll betray my integrity and betray the person that I know that at the end of the day, when I go to bed and sleep, I know that I will sleep peacefully, and that's really important. I know we all look at sleep, but most of us go to bed and sleep and not really sleep because we have betrayed ourselves. And it's not just this is not just a motivational quote. I don't do motivational. This is like the true, important food you can feed yourself. When you go to bed, how do you sleep? Because whatever keeps you up at night, if it's not feeding your soul, well, you should know that that's something that you should not allow around you. And more importantly, you should know more than ever, and I think in the Western world, we're very about choices. Choices like, oh, I have a choice to go to the shopping center. No, choices when you can choose. To know that you have a choice to choose who and when they come into your surrounding. So that has kept me whole, and that is something that I will always lead by and live by in my life, because I think that's where you don't find happiness, you find peace, and you find true joy. So so that's really...
Okay, so I know we've got a few minutes more. So Yvonne, I want to share one with you and another question then later for you, Marina. Yvonne, you ran your platform, you ran about engagement and inclusiveness and noted the essential link of accountability and integrity. That was during the Lord Mayor race. Can you explain a little bit more about what that means and a tip that you might have for those of us who are thinking about using such a platform in their own style of leadership in our own industries and work?
Oh, look, when I think about this city, but also about how politics has been, and certainly the lack of inclusiveness in a meaningful way of women and certainly Aboriginal people, it's been very disheartening. When I think about the city, and certainly from the campaign perspective, but also just the livability perspective across the city, there are pockets that really reinforce the vulnerabilities that should not exist in the first place. There is a great divide, and you cannot have the glossy magazines or the flyers that go out or the brochures to say that you have a commitment to X, Y and Z, and then you actually don't live that commitment. When I stood for the Lord Mayor and as a councillor, the difference that I wanted to make then, and the difference I still want to make, is that ensure that people that feel that they don't have a voice, to actually help them raise that voice. We have, my team and I, the amount of people across the city that reached out to us in making change, whether that be through donations or participating in the campaign process, or actually just putting forward their views on how they cannot live in this city. That's one of the reasons why I stood, but certainly been connected to the issues in the first and foremost is your greatest strength. In terms of tips, I would think that you can't do it for ego purposes. If you do, I think, and some people do, for me, ego should be left at the door. And you need to be making the difference that you say you want to do. You can't listen to all the knockers, because they will continue to be there and they will continue to get louder. And for me, I think the greatest challenge is actually not listening to their views and putting them into your head. It does a disservice to yourself, but also to them. One of the greatest things that I feel that we need to do is be kinder to each other. When someone comes to you and talks about someone in a negative way, think about how you would feel if they were talking about you. That kindness, or the lack of it, is really very detrimental to everyone, and particularly yourself. And we all have an opportunity to make a positive difference, or are we going to make a difference for ourselves at the expense of someone else? I'm not one of those people. I see it in my own community and how people will continually denigrate because that gives us strength, and that may be a learned behaviour. But for me, the way that I ran around accountability and integrity is that it has to start with me, and it shouldn't stop with me. But that the negative behaviours and the ugly part of politics needs to stop at some point, and I would like to be that change in that cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you. Marina, I think to finish us off, I feel like we've got a long weekend crowd in here. Everyone's like...
I'll keep it
It's been
very
a long
brief.
year. It's been a long few years. So 10 years ago, we launched Women's Agenda. So we're here looking at the decade ahead, and as you know, and I know would happen in your own board career, we've long talked about targets and metrics and tools for accountability. So can I ask you to set a couple of collective ideas for us in this room to finish us off today about in 2032, what will be some key metrics of success in terms of working towards a more equal, sustainable, smarter future? Go on.
Okay, that's a very big question, and I'll keep it very brief. But, well, first of all, I do think we are going to have to move to quotas. We are going to have to do that because we're not moving fast enough. It troubles me that we're not moving fast enough. But I think cultural diversity is the next big horizon. And I've been reading recently that in the UK, they haven't yet moved to official published targets around cultural diversity, but some of the bigger companies are actually starting to report on it, which is very exciting. I know that within my own boards, I raise it all the time. It's definitely a point of discussion. And so I would say to everybody, you've really got to use your voice. We're in a privileged situation in this room. Everyone here is a leader or an emerging leader. You've got leader in your realm. Use that, and we can make a difference not only across our organisations, but even one-on-one. So what I also try and do, apart from, insisting on certain, metrics. So 27%, for example, of people in Australia, according to ABS last year, were born overseas. Our leadership doesn't reflect anything like that. It needs to by 2032. But what we can do is we can actually find somebody that looks different to the regular leader and support them. Help them, advocate for them, talk them up in the organisation, lend them your wisdom and your experience.
Marina, Yvonne and Aminata, thank you so much for joining the panel. Thank you for your words of advice and wisdom, and thank you. Excellent leaders right here, so thank you everybody.